Hi, I'm Allie Russell, and I'm here for a first chapter Friday read. My debut novel, It Came from the Trees, is a creepy camping horror story for older middle grade readers. This is the story of Jenna, a scout who really loves the outdoors, right up until her best friend gets taken by a creature that some people say doesn't exist. No one believes Jenna, not the police, not even her own mother, of course, and eventually Jenna realizes it's going to be up to her to rescue her best friend, so she ventures back out into the woods with a new troop. Even though I'm a huge horror fan, I'm terrified of everything that includes the woods, the dark, ticks, and so many other things. So you're probably asking yourself, why did I write this book? There are simple reasons, like I really like being scared in that safe way that only horror books offer. I love middle grade horror and cryptids, but I'm also really intrigued by missing person stories, especially when someone goes missing in the woods. But there are also more complex reasons. I worry about everything. I'm afraid of everything. So I wanted to write a story about a girl who is also afraid, but moves through the stages of fear and eventually conquers her monsters. And even though I'm terrified of the woods, I do like the idea of black and brown kids venturing into the great outdoors because the outdoors are for everyone. It Came from the Trees has camping, scouts, s'mores, scary campfire tales, and themes of environmentalism and friendship. And if you like found footage horror, this book also has newspaper reports, blog posts, and other mixed media to make readers feel like they're part of the story. So, toast your mallows. Here's a little introduction to Jenna and her best friend, Reese. Jenna loved the outdoors and had always felt at ease in the woods until 2 days ago. She wasn't quite ready to say it out loud, but her desire to go home probably had less to do with the required uniform and more to do with her new troop and its leader. In a matter of 2 days, troop leader Heather Winslow, a pale woman with stiff lips and a pinched face, had managed to steal Jenna's joy of the outdoors. The woman wasn't warm or friendly. Her answers were short, and her face was made up of sharp angles that refused to curve into a smile whenever Jenna was in her presence. She had managed to make Jenna feel unwelcome in the great outdoors. Jenna wiggled her shoulders, trying to shake off the bad energy from her troop leader, but that negative feeling was quickly replaced by another, the unsettling feeling of being watched. It's too quiet, Jenna said. Silence had shrouded the woods ever since Cottontail Scouts Troop 3122 set out earlier that month. With bared teeth and curled fingers, her best friend, Reese, arched her thick dark eyebrows and said, "That means a predator's close." Ahead of them, their fellow scouts giggled and talked, completely unaware of potential danger nearby. During a rare moment of quiet from Reese, Jenna had picked up on the lack of outdoor noise, and now she couldn't unhear the silence. It was like someone had put a muzzle on the natural world. It unnerved Jenna. But her best friend wasn't bothered by the silence and filled the quiet with the sound of her own voice. Reese's nonstop chatter made Jenna think of the rude nickname that Reese's two older sisters, Tiara and Candace, used regularly, Runny Mouth Reese. Jenna had never repeated the name out loud, but in her private thoughts, she was willing to admit this one truth about her very best friend. Sometimes, Reese really did talk too much. As Jenna ran a hand through the back of her neck to chase away the prickling feeling, she was actually glad that Reese talked too much and would rescue them from the eerie silence. "Oh, I forgot to tell you," Reese shouted. "Tierra and Candace said if we get stuck with lockers on the bottom floor near the gym, we should try to switch with someone else." Jenna edged around a partially fallen log that blocked the trail, accidentally bumping shoulders with Reese. "Why?" Jenna asked. Reese's eyebrows shot up as if the answer were obvious. Because all the bottom floor lockers end up smelling like cafeteria food," Reese said. She wrinkled her nose in disgust as she hopped over a tangle of branches. "Tiara's coat always used to smell like chicken nuggets when she came home from school," she added. Tiara and Candace were now in high school, but all summer they had been sharing their laundry list of Sturbridge Middle School do's and don'ts with Reese, who then passed the vital information along to Jenna. Of course, Jenna was glad for the sacred knowledge, but Tiara and Candace had made middle school sound scary and impossible. She wondered how easy it would really be to swap lockers, especially on the first day when their new school was double the size of what she and Reese were used to. Reese squealed and threw her hands in the air as she skirted a trio of green leaves. Sure that Reese was overreacting to a bug, Jenna grabbed hold of the leaves to inspect them. "No, don't touch it," Reese shouted. Jenna let go of the leaves in a panic and bounced on her toes. "What? What?" she screamed. "Hold your hands out," Reese said. A few of their fellow scouts turned to look at them, but Jenna didn't have time to explain what was wrong. She didn't even know what was wrong. But she trusted her best friend completely and positioned her hands under Reese's thermos to catch its droplets of lukewarm water. As Reese struggled to shake more water from the bottle, Jenna's stomach tightened. The look on her best friend's face confirmed her fear. She'd touched something poisonous, and water wasn't going to cure it. This isn't going to help, is it? Is it? Jenna asked. Reese shook her head. I don't think so. Which one did I touch? Reese's lips tightened as she tried not to look worried. Then she mumbled something that sounded a lot like poison ivy. Jenna's shoulders stiffened. Are you sure? But Jenna knew it was a stupid question. Reese might not know when to be quiet, but she could spot plants and trees faster than a professional horticulturist. Jenna didn't wait for Reese to answer. She tightened her fists and kicked at the air. Cool, she yelled, even though her situation was very uncool. When most people touched poison ivy, they developed an irritating red rash, but not Jenna. Her poison ivy usually turned into blisters that eventually required a trip to the hospital. The thought of returning home with poison ivy that left her scratching at her brown skin until it was pink and raw irritated her whole soul. Jenna adjusted her hat. A lukewarm whisper of air dried the sweat that had collected near her. She gently patted her braids and then pulled her hat back onto her head. It was early, but the day was already warm and sticky, and the heat would only get worse. Jenna looked up at the sky, searching for clouds through the spaces in the canopy of trees. She could use a downpour right about now. She'd rather be wet than have poison ivy. But there wasn't a single cloud in sight, just a steady stream of warm, stubborn sunshine. It'll be okay, Reese said. When we get to camp, we'll wash your hands and it will be fine. And maybe we'll stumble across some jewelweed. What is that? Will it help? Jenna asked. Reese shrugged. Some people think it helps, she said. Be on the lookout for orange flowers. Jenna inhaled and tried to calm her irritation, but she choked midway through her deep breath. She covered her mouth and nose with the hand that wasn't slowly festering with poison ivy. What's that smell? She asked. Reese turned her nose up to the wind and sniffed a few times. Her nose crinkled. I don't know. Rain? She asked. But the scent that hung in the air did not smell like any rain that Jenna had ever smelled. The scent was sour, like sweat and unwashed hair. It was strong, and Jenna was sure she could taste it on her tongue. The sharp sound of a whistle punctured the air. Troop Leader Winslow's voice barely reached them, but Jenna heard the words, keep up. She and Reese rolled their eyes at each other and continued walking behind their fellow scouts. Reese, of course, was always ready to fill the silence with her own voice. Oh, did I ever tell you what it's called when you can smell the rain? It's called petrichor. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right because I read it in a book, but talk of the weather made Jenna think of Reese's dad, Mr. Morgan, who was a meteorologist at the local news station. Are you going to your dad's next weekend? Jenna asked. She knew she had cut Reese off, but sometimes that was the only way to be part of the conversation. Reese's parents had separated several months before, and now she and her sisters had to spend weekends with their dad, which left Jenna bored and lonely on Saturdays and Sundays. She hoped Reese wouldn't have to go. It was a selfish wish, but she also knew that her best friend didn't like the living arrangement either, so that made her feel a little less self-absorbed. I don't know. My mom said he might have to travel to report on that hurricane. Reese snapped her fingers. Brandy? I think it's Brandy. So we might get to stay home next weekend. At least you'll get to see him on TV, Jenna said. In another rare moment of quiet, Reese shrugged and tilted her head toward the ground. Hang on, she said. Gotta tie my shoe. Her body sank low to the ground. Jenna, whose eyes had remained trained on the same general area where Reese had been standing, caught a dark blur of movement in the trees. Her blood and body froze. She choked on a gasp, and her heart skipped a beat. The breath in her lungs was snatched away so suddenly that her chest ached, and she felt every single hair on her body stand up straight, like they too were witnessing the horror of what she was seeing. Something was staring back at her from among the trees. It was tall and coated in dark fur. Or was it hair? And it was standing on what appeared to be two legs, with one massive hand, with fingers, pressed against the trunk of the tree. Huge nostrils flared in a human-like face as its chest rose and fell in quick bursts, like it was breathing hard or smelling the air. When it locked eyes with Jenna, its lips peeled back to reveal teeth that looked ready to tear and rip. Jenna wanted to shout at Reese, to tell her to look, but the most she could do was wiggle her fingers in Reese's face. Her friend must have thought she was messing around, because Reese only swatted back at her fingers while laughing. Jenna's brain tried to classify what she was seeing, but the only results she could conjure were images of great apes. Her brain wanted to accept the ape theory, but her gut disagreed. Her muscles, which had felt like gelatin just seconds before, were now tensed and ready to flee. Her body and her animal instincts were screaming at her, telling her to run from this predator. Reese was still facing the ground, checking her shoelaces and bobbing her head to music only she could hear. Troop 3122 was moving along the trail without them. Less than 75 feet away, a creature from a horror story was stalking them, and only Jenna knew. I hope you enjoyed that first little bit of chapter from It Came from the Trees. And if you're a young reader, if you are a young reader or looking for a camping horror story, please consider adding It Came from the Trees to your collections when it publishes on July 30th. Jenna's had a really tough time, and so have librarians. So before I go, I want to thank you, librarians, for all the hard work you're doing to put and keep books in libraries. No one should have to worry about the threat of prosecution simply for doing the work of putting a book into a young person's hands. So when you walk through your library doors each day, please know that you're not walking through those doors alone. There really is an army of angry authors, illustrators, parents, and readers right behind you. And in case it's helpful for you to know, the group Authors Against Book Bans is working really hard to stand united against these unconstitutional book bans. If you want to learn more about them, you can visit authorsagainstbookbans.com. Thank you for reading, thank you for listening, and enjoy your summer.